My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Please be seated. David Brooks' May 30th column in the New York Times addressed the state of the world in which we inhabit. He recognized the difficult economic times, the unemployment, the fear that exists, and the ways in which we struggle with this fear. But beyond that, he really used the lens of the commencement address for college graduation as the topic at hand to consider what we experience together in this country. He said that most college graduates are facing a horrible job market. They're going into a world where a job is in no way assured. Many of them will move home. Many of them just don't know what to do. And Brooks went on to consider the advice that commencement speakers are giving graduates, and whether or not that advice at this point in history, and maybe ever, is terribly useful. I quote, "Many graduates are told to follow your passion, chart your own course, march to the beat of your own drummer, follow your dreams, and find yourself." He goes on to say, this is the litany of expressive individualism, which is still the dominant note in American culture. And goes on to talk about the ways in which this advice, particularly in this time, might not be terribly useful. Now, while I understand many of the underlying assumptions in the piece, there are those that I might question, but it seems difficult to deny the presence of a kind of radical individualism and a kind of radical autonomy in our culture that in this time of strife is not useful. I know what the commencement speakers mean. They mean go out there and find your passion and your zest and apply it in the world. I know what they're trying to say. They're trying to convey adventure and self-discovery. But I wonder what most of us hear. I wonder what most college graduates hear. Go out there and grab a hold of whatever you can right now. Know that you're going to have to take it away from someone else, and be ready for that. Be ready for the fight, because you're going to have to strip what you want away from someone else. So dig in. Get it done, if that's what you want. Find your happiness, even if it means stamping on the happiness of another. Is the underlying message for college graduates here in 2011, it's all about you? I think finding your passion is fine. I think finding the fuel that energizes you is incredibly important. But don't you need some sort of ethical compass? Don't you need some kind of compassion and concern for those around you? Isn't there some value in cooperation, in working together, and in sacrificing for the common good. Find your bliss is great if you have a comprehensive vision for what truly matters in this world. And you find a way to live that out personally and professionally. I think even in the most ideal of circumstances, what I want and what is virtuous can be incredibly difficult to reconcile. I think Paul's letter to the Romans captures all of this incredibly well. He highlights the difficulty that he has as a person knowing what is right, what is virtuous, what is true. Knowing how to engage it, knowing how to affect it, yet when it comes time to do it, he can't. He falls short. He does the very thing that he despises. He says, I see and I understand the situation. I know which path to take, but I always find myself on the wrong path. How many of us have lived lives like that at moments? How many times have you known the right thing to say in the right moment? And it's almost like life slows down in slow motion and you step out of your body and you see yourself preparing to say the wrong thing, knowing that it's wrong, and not being able to stop yourself from doing it. How many times do we fall short despite our knowledge, our self-knowledge, and our knowledge of holiness? Jesus acknowledges the childlike bent to all this in the gospel lesson this morning. He addresses the fickle nature of humanity as he speaks to the crowds. He says to them, you were looking for an ascetic-styled prophet like the prophets of old, wandering about in the wilderness, in a form that you recognize. And you had John the Baptist, and you said he was mad. So I come to you now, the divine essence of life, living in your midst, rubbing elbows with you, at table with you, and you say I'm too accessible. You say I'm too close. I just couldn't be holy, being that near. I think in all of this, we recognize that we have freedom as human beings. We have choice. We have that ability to determine our direction. But we struggle mightily to do it properly. Freedom and individual autonomy are great gifts given us. As citizens of this land, this very weekend, we should never take the personal and national freedoms we enjoy for granted. We must recognize, remember, and practice a personal and national ethic that seeks the common good, that seeks the building up of the least in our society. And we're forced to recognize that our freedoms are only as good as our individual and corporate willingness to sacrifice for them. Isn't that the witness of those that have come before us? Isn't that the witness of the patriots that we commemorate in this community? Following their bliss meant longing for a better day, building a better world, and taking care of those most at risk. But for the contemporary disciple, the freedom we enjoy in Christ is about more than a better world or a better day or fulfillment or finding our bliss. Following Jesus is not synonymous with happiness. There's very little happiness pictured on the cross. But it's about a vision of a restored humanity, restored to right relationship with God, and where we are restored to right relationship with each other. It's about transcending the barriers that keep me obsessed with myself, that I might get over that hurdle and really and truly and completely love you. It's about seeing you not as an obstacle to my bliss, but seeing you as a necessary element of my bliss. As we give thanks for the freedoms we enjoy as citizens of this country on this most important of national holiday weekends, I hope we remember that we are citizens of this land, but our real residency is in another land. It's a kingdom. Nothing democratic about it. It's ruled by a monarch, a benevolent monarch that has the whole kingdom in his care and cares for each piece of it, and will not allow practicality to interfere with his love. When we strive for that kingdom, we are free from tyranny. When we long for that land and that ruler, we find freedom. And when we claim our place as citizens of that kingdom, we break free from the prison, even the prisons that we built for ourselves.